Warning, warning, virus infection alert.
That's nice and low.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, how's it going, everybody? This is Andrew Edison, and you're listening to Movie Blab. My guest today is filmmaker, Hollywood underdog, indie film guru, festival founder, and author of The Cheerful Submersive's Guide to Filmmaking, the one and only Mr. Dan Mirvish. You may know Dan as the co-founder of the Slamdance Film Festival, the director of many fantastic star-studded indie films such as Between Us and Bernard and Huey, as well as the author, as I said, of one of the most practical and best books on filmmaking that I've personally ever read, available anywhere books are sold. Dan is holding up a copy right now for those of you who are joining us in the video realm. It looks
And
good.
even on the audio realm, I was still holding it up.
Yeah, you can hear it. Maybe flip through it for the listener so they can hear the nice sound it makes and smell the book smell.
It's that new book smell.
Here we go. Dan is currently in production on his next feature, 18 and a half. Dan, thanks for joining me on Movie Blab. Extremely honored to have you.
No, thank you. Guest. Thank you, Andrew. And it is my honor entirely to be on the very first and hopefully not the last Movie Blab.
Yeah, we'll
podcast.
See. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's uncertain times.
It's my first quarantine podcast interview, so it's very exciting.
This podcast wouldn't exist without this quarantine, if I'm being perfectly honest.
But you've been talking about doing this for a while, though, haven't you?
It has been. I've kicked it around in my head for a while, just because it's the only thing that I have a lot to say about.
Right. So you may as well
talk.
And you like to talk, so that's good. So you should
like
talk about movies.
Yeah, I do. I like radio. I love like Howard Stern. I love like mainly Howard Stern. I love radio. The actual art form of radio. So it's fun to that's why I tried to figure out how to have this live sound effects board, which is pretty cool.
Boing!
Yeah, I got some cool sounds coming up. Check it out. That's for Corona.
Oh, that's nice. That's someone else coughing. That's neither of us.
Infection alert. Warning, warning, virus infection alert. Warning, virus infection alert.
The clock has started. The clock has started.
Warning, virus infection.
So that's pretty cool.
Okay, that is cool.
I spent more time learning to do that than I did.
Is that some sort of thing you download from the
Yes,
computer?
It's an app that I'm running from one computer into this computer.
Wow.
This is taking me so much time to figure out. Yeah. But I felt I've been talking about doing podcasts for so long, and now here we are. But we should get to it. We should get to it. Let's do it. So you are not just a filmmaker. You are sort of the face of indie filmmaking in some realms, right? You are a mogul or a spokesperson in some ways. How would you describe your
spokesmodel?
Spokesmodel, exactly.
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. I don't. Thank you. That's I don't know. I mean, I'm an advocate and a voice
scholar,
spokesmodel, indie film spokesmodel scholar. I'm a scholar model.
So I'm sure you've said a lot of the same things and a lot of these. What is the question? But even before I ask you a question, I wanted to know what is the question that you're constantly being asked on this type of thing. Do you have any specific kind of? Yeah,
I mean, I think what is the question?
I think you do these talks in colleges and people raise their hands and ask the same.
Yes. Did you say toxicology or talks in colleges?
Talks in colleges. Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing these days. Yeah.
Wait. Oh, I didn't do it. Oh, wait. I got it.
A rim shot? Do you have a rim shot?
Late, but I think I have a. Oh well, it's kind of late now, but I have one of these.
Thank you and good night.
Oh, here it is.
Those are great. Well, you can add them in post-production.
Yeah, I'll just jump to that part. Anyway.
Yeah, easy. No, I don't know. I mean, I think the question that the basic question is, how do I make a movie?
Yeah.
And probably the better question is, should I make a movie?
Great. Yes, that's just what I literally wanted to open this whole episode with. I'm doing these little spiels at the beginning of them. in the spiel of the first thing I'm getting into is, why do you even want to do this? Because it is so hard. And it is, you're putting so much of your life at risk in different ways, and your effort and your time. Like, yet I've seen people do it who don't seem to be in it for the right reasons, if that's a thing.
Yeah.
Just going through the fantasy of it, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and everyone's reasons are different, and everyone's reasons should be different for making a movie.
But one, right?
That doesn't mean everyone should make a movie. But I don't want to be the person to tell someone that they shouldn't, that they're the ones who shouldn't.
No, of course not.
I mean,
yeah.
I think if that's your passion, sure, why not?
And if you have a reason, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it should be a reasonably good reason if you can figure it out. But I think the problem that people make is getting into it and not even knowing what the reasons are. I think once you figure out why you want to make a movie, and there's there's dozens of reasons to do it, pick your top 5 reasons and then make the movie that satisfies those reasons for why you're making a film.
Yeah, that's your criteria in a way for
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if your reason, for example, to make a movie is to make a lot of money, number one, I mean, look, that's been people's reasons to make movies for 120 years. It's not.
Well, yeah, thank God. Without that delusion, no movie would ever be made.
Exactly. But on the other hand, but if that is your reason to make a movie, you're going to make a different kind of movie than someone who says, oh, I want to make art, or I want to engage with an audience, or I want to go to film festivals,
or do something I haven't seen.
All of which are perfectly valid reasons, but at some point they become mutually exclusive, so.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to close my window.
Okay. I'm just going to keep talking while Andrew closes his window. It's probably safer for everyone to keep their windows closed these days, but I'm no HVAC expert, so.
Huh?
Nothing. Just talking to your audience.
I'll hear it later.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's a great place to start, because it's like the theme of this episode, or the thing that we're kind of dabbling in, is expecting the unexpected, but it's also like the doomsday preparation, right? Mm-hmm. For a filmmaker. Right. And I think starting the ways I wanted to talk about ways to safeguard yourself, before you end up on set, before you start shooting. And I think that the first step might be asking yourself why you even want to do this.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you go into it thinking, for example, oh, I'm going to make money, or, oh, my film will be distributed by a big distributor, and then your distributor goes bankrupt. Once then you've made your movie, you've gone to festivals, you've gotten a distributor, and then your distributor goes bankrupt. If you're not mentally prepared for that happening at the get-go, then you will be greatly disappointed. If you're like me, and that happens pretty much every time I've made a movie, you expect it, and you're like, okay, I warn my investors, I warn my actors, I warn my colleagues.
Yeah, not everyone will make it to the end.
Well, that your film will be fine, but your distributor will go bankrupt and you won't make money. And that is literally in my business plan. Like, point number 3, distributor will go bankrupt and you will all get screwed. This is.
Yeah, it is a gamble for sure.
And as long as you know that going in, and everybody knows that going in, you're not going to have an investor that comes and breaks your kneecap,
Well, I think you could say that about a sound mixer, or like anyone that's because everyone's investing their time, especially if they're taking indie rates, their tolerance for bullshit kind of seems to be a little.
Exactly. So like when you tell a sound mixer, hey, we're shooting really close to a train. We know that going in.
Yeah.
So just be prepared that at 3 times a day, a train's going to go by. Like if everybody knows that going in, you're not going to be surprised when that happens.
Yes.
You're surprised by the leaf blower showing up in dead of winter, but that's another matter.
So yes, anticipating the worst, but then I feel like something else that I've thought about is, what about the balance between planning everything that could go wrong and freaking yourself out? Right?
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm a confident filmmaker. I don't get nerves. I get excited, but I don't get nervous except for like when I'm trying to go to sleep and like every time the crew isn't around.
Right.
But like, I know that some other people and directors can be more introverted. I don't know. There's a lot of people, I feel like listeners that are out there who have always wanted to, and they're not out there yet, but maybe they will be, who have always wanted to make a film, but there's something about them or their personalities or their flaws or whatever it is or their lives that keeps them from doing it. Right. And taking the leap. And I think some people, how do you measure those two things and serve yourself mentally?
I think I like to say that the first person convinced that you're going to make a film is yourself. And that's probably the hardest person to convince. Once you're completely self-delusional, then it's easy to get other people on board.
Yeah, you got to build up that delusion. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it really takes time. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like doing crowdfunding campaigns, whether it's Kickstarter or Seed and Spark or Indiegogo, whatever it is. Because one of the nice things about that is it's, before you get a chance to convince 300 of your closest friends and Facebook friends and parents friends to give you money, what doing any kind of halfway decent crowdfunding campaign does is it forces you to do a pitch video. It forces you to do some kind of a business plan.
Yeah, it's like a way to make money doing a lot of your pre-production. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, you should have your LLC set up because, or if you're doing an LLC, you have to have all these kind of the boring structures of making a movie kind of set up before you even do that crowdfunding campaign. Because when, all these people give money to Kickstarter, then Kickstarter writes you a check. Well, they need to know who to write the check to. So do you have a bank account set up? Do you have an LLC? Do you have a lawyer?
Wow, yeah, it does lock you into all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what's good about those things is then by the time you start your crowdfunding campaign, you kind of already talked yourself into doing this thing.
Yes.
Whatever the thing is.
Yeah. Well, and you told everyone that you're going to do it.
Yeah. And what's interesting about these crowdfunding campaigns is that they really are, you don't have a legal obligation to make the film. I mean, it's not like they're not investors. They're just giving you money. You could take that money and go to Brazil if you wanted. I don't recommend that. But there's this kind of this social contract you then have with these people, and especially because so many of them are going to be pre-existing friends and family, that sort of says, what, now I'm kind of socially obligated to 300 different people that I'm going to make this movie.
And that can get awkward.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes that little jumping off the cliff, and Kickstarter is that. I mean, you gave me some great advice a long time ago that was to pick your start date.
Yes.
Go.
Exactly.
And I think that in Kickstarter, in a sense, does that maybe a little bit for
you. I mean, at least it picks your start date for your crowdfunding, And
I've known some people, though, and I'm not obviously going to name names or anything specific about them, but who, raise Kickstarter money and then nothing materialized. And there's, stories told of one person taking off with it or another person taking off with it.
Yeah. I haven't heard that. Honestly, I have not heard that many stories of someone sort of intentionally taking off with the money.
You keep better company than I do, probably.
I know, I think so. I think what is more common is people, try to raise more money than they think they're going to raise, or they try to be more ambitious, and then they don't make their goal. And Kickstarter is sort of an all or nothing thing. So that happens. And then in other cases where people, are, they're being appropriately not as ambitious, and they're just trying to raise development money or money to, write the script or get the rights or something like that. And then they still haven't made the movie. And then they have to do another Kickstarter campaign 3 years later or 2 years later. And I think that is not uncommon. And I think even in those cases, usually their fans and backers are still kind of with them, as long as you're communicating with them and telling them.
There.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You're getting a mailing list.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think that's I think one of the nice things about it. Like when I do these campaigns, for me, it's not about the amount of money. It's, it's called Kickstarter, not Kick Finisher, right? So it's, you shouldn't expect to raise all your money that way. But if you can raise 5% or 10% of your budget, what's nice is that, if your old college roommate gives you $20, but then posts it on Facebook, and then their sister is married to the Silicon Valley investor sees it, and he puts in $10,000.
And there's your name. There's your person to talk to for future funds. And
exactly. Yeah, so for example, on this last film, 18 and a half, I mean, I think directly we raised, what was it, $18,000 or something like that.
Wow.
But indirectly, it was $133,000, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all of our other subsequent investment came from that campaign, sort of not directly, but indirectly. You're like, oh, wow, you're doing campaign. I guess this is the time to invest. Or,
Yes.
you know, oh, hey, that's a really cool pitch video. Now I get it. And now I want to invest, you know.
So this is great procedure, but let's talk about how far though how hard you work on these campaigns.
Yeah.
So like this isn't just, I mean, for you, I mean, and I know that I've consulted on a few Kickstarters and done a few of my own, and it's content every day, and it's constant. It's a full-time job, those 30 days, if you're really trying to hit a mark.
Yeah, no, and it should be, and you need to sort of take it that seriously. It's funny. I have a friend who he's part of a group of 4 people, and they started a company to make wine bottles. You know, it's this sort of cool invention to take wine bottles on picnics or something like that. And he did a Kickstarter campaign. Yeah, like totally different from what we're doing.
It's as good of an idea as a filmmaking podcast.
Yeah, no, I know. But the point is, like, inventions always do much better on crowdfunding than actual movies. But it was funny, like I said, so, okay, so how are you guys doing your campaign? He's like, well, we hired this consultant, you know, to do the Facebook ads. We hired this other consultant to do our pitch video. We hired this other consultant to do this. And I was like, great, well, how much did you guys raise? And he said, oh, well, we raised like $80,000.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, they raised like $80,000, which was great. And I said, well, how much do you pay these consultants? About $50,000.
Yeah,
you know?
Crazy. Yeah,
so
I take 10%, and that feels like a lot.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is, you know, there's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, I knew some filmmakers a few years ago who raised $120,000, you know, which was great. But their fulfillment, I mean, and they weren't paying it all to consultants or anything, but in their case, their fulfillment, you know, like
was insane. Oh, that's the nightmare.
Was like
unseen.
It was like $100,000.
Yeah,
you know?
This is the expected,
and took them a year and a half to do.
This is the unexpected of Kickstarter is these people setting themselves up to fail with these crazy and lose money with these crazy incentives that you're not a t-shirt factory.
Right.
It's like go online and see how much it costs you to get 100 t-shirts printed before you before you post that that's like before you make that your $20 incentive. You know,
so
I have a second window. Jesus, I'm new. I'm not good at this.
What? How many windows do you have? I think all of us should come together and send Andrew money so he can afford fewer windows for his studio. I think the guy has too many windows.
We're just having,
and that's what I think.
Oh God, I'm gonna put music under that, like fun music for your little corner.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I think people really need to sort of be realistic in what their fulfillment is cost, how much time it's going to take, and how many, you know, do you need extra people helping you? Do you need interns? Do you need, you know, friends helping you out on just the fulfillment side of things? You know, obviously, I mean, what I like to do is, as much as you can do digitally, you know, on this last campaign, we, you know, someone gave us $25. We sort of photoshopped their face into, you know, a picture with Elvis and Nixon. And it was really, and it was fun. It was a cute thing, and it was fairly easy to do. And we kind of streamlined it.
The classic name a character after you. I've seen
exactly. There's things like that, or sending people.
Yeah, if you sit down and think about it,
the script. You know, the digital version of the script or something like that.
Or so you see the rough cut. You get to view a stream of the rough cut, or
sorry, hang on a second. I'm getting a question from a caller. Our friend Debbie wants to know, how long and at what temp do you usually cook your salmon at?
Oh, right.
So
and what's your answer?
So the answer is I would go with 425 degrees and for 10 minutes.
Wow.
So
that sounds perfect.
So that's great that we're already getting questions from the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really happy to hear that everyone's...
I don't know if she's actually listening, but if you are, Debbie Richards, it's 425 at 10 minutes. So
thank you for being a part of this show.
There you go. That's great. So but that's great. Keep those questions coming. Andrew and I are here for you.
No one can hear us. I tried to live stream this, but this is just going to be posted like
Yeah.
probably right after.
Well, that's good. Well, send us your questions and then we won't have to answer them.
Yeah,
because they'll
well,
come
yeah,
after
maybe
the
we'll.
fact.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, so once you've done this, you know, the crowdfunding, and you figured out a way to do it and do it efficiently, and you know, and do your fulfillment in a timely way, so you're not, so it doesn't drag on forever either. You know?
And you mentioned a team. I think that's another great thing. Like when we did ours, and in the past, I've encouraged people to get all of their friends together and say, like, this is this operation I need help with. Like, because a lot of people do these also like in-person event launches for the Kickstarters. And I've seen those actually be really successful. I've been to some fancy Kickstarter parties.
Wow.
Not as fancy as you though, Dan.
I don't go to that fancy parties. I don't get out much. You know that.
You did get out though.
No,
never. You're gonna look back. Like,
I never go back.
I know. I did find that when this whole lockdown thing started, I was like, it's not that different.
It's not really that different. Yeah. It hasn't changed much.
Except I'm just afraid when I walk my dog.
Yeah. No, I'm afraid I don't even have a dog. That's what makes me afraid. I'm like, where'd this dog come from? I don't know. It must be a Corona dog.
Okay. So
everyone should get one.
I like that. I don't want to talk about Kickstarter the whole time because I love it.
That's not what. There's other podcasts just for that.
Yeah, well, and I love it. Is such an interesting the Kickstarter podcast.
I mean, I think it. You know, the only thing I would say is that the only other thing to say is that whatever your video is, if you're doing a pitch video, is that it should be somehow. I mean, put a lot of time and effort into it. If that's the first time people are going to see you as a filmmaker, that should reflect the tone, the spirit.
And don't come across as an egomaniac,
right?
Or as someone who thinks that their shit is so good. Because be vulnerable and honest and be yourself. Because I think that's, I mean, it's the difference between a lot of money and a little money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those videos are super crucial.
And I think there should be a film festival just for pitch videos.
Oh my
I think
God,
it is
the
its
Kickstarter
own
film festival.
I know. I've actually recommended this in the past. I don't think anyone's done it though. But it really is a genre in and of itself. I mean, the good ones are.
Dan, no one wants to see that, but I do.
There you go. Well, we can do a virtual
We're having trouble getting people to watch the videos on their own. That's funny. But okay, so I wanted to talk to you about where you are right now.
Yes.
Because one of the things that really made me want to bring you on for this first episode is that you are in the middle of shooting your next film.
Right. C-47. So yes, so I just got done shooting about 80% of my next film.
That's the worst part, right?
Well, it's better than 70% or 60%.
I guess 0%. That's true. Yeah.
So we were just out in the tip of Long Island in a pretty isolated location. Like it was out in Greenport, Long Island, on the North Fork of Long Island.
I just shot in Long Island.
So
very
this
isolated.
Is a place called the Silver Sands Motel and Cottages. So it was kind of like a giant campsite. It was like 80 acres.
It looks so cool. The pictures are awesome. Check them out on.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's an amazing place, and we felt mostly self-quarantined even while we were out there. But so we shot about 2 weeks worth of footage out there, and then we had a day off, and then we were going to have 4 more days of shooting, and this was like I don't know, 10 days ago or so, and we finally the exigencies, the realities of the outside pandemic finally kind of came upon us very quickly, and we realized people needed it. We were probably safe, but people needed to get back to their loved ones and
the travel becomes
airplanes
less safe.
While they could.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and there was a lot of uncertainty about it too. Like we didn't know if there was going to be a domestic travel ban, or subways were going to shut down in New York. We just didn't know.
I want to get specific about this experience for you, though. The nightmare of this, right? So you're like, where you're shooting, everything is going great. You're having an amazing time. I'm assuming it was.
Yeah, and it was going really smoothly. Yeah, which was pretty.
That's
remarkable.
Usually the case, right? Right before something like this. So when did you first begin thinking about the idea that you might? Am I buzzy? When did you first start thinking about the idea that you might need to pull the plug?
Take a pandemic pause?
Yes, pandemic
pause. Well, we had So on the Friday of our second week, I don't remember what the dates were on this, but we had a visit from our DGA rep, which is a nice thing is I'm in the DGA. It's my second film I've done DGA. And so I have
Love
a
the
DGA
DGA.
first.
Love them.
Yeah, Directors Guild. I'm representing. It's just coincidence. Representing DGA.
Amazing. DGA.
Yeah, and and they're really cool about doing low budget movies. Like you can actually do a low budget movie under the DGA, and they're pretty. They have a way of doing that. Anyway, but one of the interesting things about the DGA, which I think with a lot of, not every union, but a lot of unions do, is they send a rep out to check in on you to make sure your working conditions are okay, whatever. Which, if you're your own producer, is just kind of, it's not really necessary. They kind of do it because it's a chance for them to go out and visit.
Yeah, like I was about to say, like, what a fun job to just get to like freak everyone out with your presence as the inspector of film
it's
sets.
Actually, yeah, I know. It's actually would be a pretty cool job to have.
Power
trip. At least for a while. And and the woman that was doing it from DGA New York, I'd actually met her at Slamdance. They're a sponsor of the festival, and I'd met her, and she's really cool. And our second AD knew her, so we were kind of looking forward to her coming out, but they sort of come out unannounced. And so she came out on that Friday, and she was literally the first person who told me the term social distancing.
Oh,
so,
wow. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, because I really wasn't
that's
paying
what
much.
It sets in.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, what? That's a thing? That's a term? Because I had not been paying a lot of attention to the news. I was making a movie. We were sort of blissfully ignorant.
I was in post. I was not either. I was just like totally in my favorite video game. Post-production.
And she, told us that we were one of the last productions shooting in North America. I mean, we were hearing about a few like TV shows and big things that were shutting down.
Kind of cool, but also.
Yeah, I know. She thought it was cool. And she was like, oh, this is really cool. You guys are all self-quarantined. I was like, okay, that's great. But why are you visiting from Manhattan if we're self-quarantined?
Yeah, why did you bring us this virus?
Yeah, that was a little peculiar.
Well, we didn't understand how it worked yet,
Yeah.
We didn't
so, but she said, like, we were one of the last DGA productions shooting. She said there was one in Puerto Rico on an island, that was going. And she thought there was maybe one more in Chicago and then us. And that was kind of when it started to sink in, like, oh,
the remoteness.
Are we really the last one standing? Like, that's kind of unnerving in and of itself. But it was still at a day when things were, people were still like, oh, you can have meetings of 250 people or less, and there's this term social distancing was just kind of a brand new thing.
So it felt like it was going to be a quick pause then.
Well, no, even at that point, we weren't even thinking of pausing. It was really only like 2 days later when the CDC, and we checked like the CDC regulations before our last night of shooting, and it was still at like 50 people in a room was okay, and we only had like 22. So
how are you getting this information? Because you're trying to focus on directing your movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, in the back of your head, because I'm such a baby as a director, like if there's something that's pissing me off or something that's unspoken or something that I can't, that isn't the point of being there, that's going on, in that way, like I get very annoyed because I feel like, well, I could be having better ideas. I could be more present.
Right.
I could be better, more articulate if I didn't have this thing in the back of my mind.
Yeah,
exactly.
Part
of the process, and part of expecting the unexpected.
Yeah, and what would happen was between every between takes, like actors and crew members would go to their phones and go like, oh my gosh, do you hear what's happening here?
Hey,
like,
damn.
Oh no,
and China's getting real bad over.
Yeah, I know. That's what it was like. And
like,
so
let's get another take here. Come on.
So I was just, I was sort of, blissfully ignorant of some of this stuff and just focusing on the work. And I think
after that first week, you're in a groove, right? I mean,
yeah. And everyone was. I mean, we felt like we were making really good material. The performances were great. It was looking great. Everyone was getting along well, which doesn't always happen. So I think all of us were trying to sort of like dive into the work and sort of, had this feeling that we were at least relatively, self-quarantined at this kind of campsite. But in reality, you know, it was not like a hermetically sealed quarantine. We were still getting food from the town, and people were still going into town for things. So, and we were getting like the DGA visiting from New York.
And,
so
yeah, everyone's all over the place
so
in New
it
York.
wasn't. Yeah, so it was never like a hermetically sealed quarantine, but it was, you know, but it was certainly safer than most places. But eventually, just you know, by that weekend, like a week and a half ago, you know, things really escalated quickly. You know, that was when, you know, San Francisco went into lockdown mode, and, you know, it was looking like LA was going to. And, you know, and there was talk of New York shutting down subways and things like that. So, and then sure enough, like the day after we, you know, and we were coming to sort of a natural pause in the sense that we had a day off scheduled already. So some people were already scheduled to go back to New York.
I see. Okay.
So we were like, you know what, this seems like if we're going to do it, then that's the time to do it. And for those last 4 days, there were some new actors that were going to come in from New York, and some of them were starting to get nervous and back out.
Yeah,
and we were
they weren't leaving yet. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and we had 2 actresses from LA that were like getting ready to board a plane, so we kind of literally had to make a decision, like get on the plane or don't get on the plane.
Yeah, I figured it could have been completely up to you, because like obviously you would want to just make the movie, right? I mean, we've only got a couple more fucking days left.
Right. But, you know, I also didn't want to be, you know, the guy who went, you know, who made people, you know, work when they shouldn't have been working.
Well, then that's the motivating delusion of filmmaking mixed with the reality that you're kind of constantly battling, right?
It's like, no, and it's my name at the top of the call sheet, and who owns the LLC, and if anyone's going to get sued, it's me, you know. So, yeah, no, there's definitely, you know, while it was cool to be one of the last films standing, I mean, there was a reason other people were shutting down, you know.
I don't think indie, you know, like whatever, like indie, like Slash Film is putting out a list of these were the last productions shot in New York City.
Yeah, like you don't want to be the last one standing, but then half your people got sick. Like, that's what she said. It was like it was like us, Puerto Rico, one in Puerto Rico and one in Chicago. So, and who knows? By 2 days later, we could have been the last ones. I really don't know. But yeah, we didn't want to be the idiots out there that were still shooting when we shouldn't have been. You know, exactly. That would not have been good either. So, and I think, and sure enough, by the next day, the CDC was down to like 10 people in a room. So that was when we were like, okay, we made the right decision at the right time, and it was the sense if we had gone any longer, we really would have been, you know, putting people at risk. So, and
anyway, you're not the only one with this.
You're
not the only one, obviously, who this is happening to. You know, I think
there's a lot of productions. Yeah.
Didn't Paul Schrader's shoot get paused? Did someone post?
Oh yeah, he was pissed off about that. But he gets pissed off about everything. So Paul Schrader. So he get.
I see the anger in his work.
Oh my God, I once had an email exchange with him where I was complimenting him, and he still got angry.
Well, how am I going to get him ever to be on my show if you?
I don't think you want.
I know.
Yeah, you may know. I mean, God bless him, but yeah, he's a little challenging to be around, I think.
I don't have to be around him.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so he was shooting the film. I mean, there were lots of TV productions and big budget movies going on. You know, I mean, they have a lot. They have
cushion.
You know, but also they were. You know, our feeling for a while was that these are productions shooting in big cities where the crew is going back and forth, taking subways,
giant facilities, all of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
Going back to their houses. We were in this sort of weird, isolated, you know, no man's land. So ours was a little bit different, but
you're all less safe now.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, to this day, there's still some of our crew people that are at the location. There's about a half dozen that are still staying there. Yeah. So because the guy who owns the motel is one of my producing partners, Terry. He very kindly offered to let them stay there in lockdown. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So they're still there.
They got HBO at least at the motel.
That's a good question. Yeah, I know. I don't know. They have
I hope
Wi-Fi.
for their sake. I hope, yeah, okay, they have
I hope
Wi-Fi.
so.
That's
They
good.
have
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
I wouldn't want to be doing. I mean, my studio isn't huge, but I would not want to be
Yeah.
quarantined in a.
Yeah, and I think they still have a camera too. So for all I know, they're shooting their own movie now.
That's what we do a thing called bonus features, which is like the extra little like version of this podcast where I just chat with my friends and shit. And
you do this because isn't this your first episode though?
Yeah, but we already did that. We did the
bonus features already,
so I could
Oh,
practice
that's good.
talking.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's already up on the YouTube channel, and it's starting out. I think it's going to premiere on Facebook at 7 p.m.
Okay, cool.
But Katie pointed something out really interesting on there. She was saying maybe she wonders if the Duplass brothers are just like sitting in their house together making a movie.
Oh, I'm sure. I'd be disappointed if they weren't, you know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot of people that have joked that like next Sundance, it's going to be, 20 films all with two people in a room, with paranoid,
Yeah. Do you think that this is going to change?
I mean, it's going to be a whole genre of films.
Yeah, that's my question. Is it going to
for better or for worse? And I suspect for worse,
Yeah. Well, will people want to go to the movies to think about coronavirus though? At that point, like by the time you can go back to the movies, are we really going to want to dwell on that, or is it going to be?
No, I mean it's interesting. I mean, you can look at sort of past national traumas, and like there weren't, like it's funny, but like World War II, there were a lot of World War II movies during World War II. And even after, and after World War II, Vietnam, there were not a lot of Vietnam movies until like at least 10 years later. And then after 9/11 and the war in Iraq, there was a whole glut of those. And honestly, most of them people didn't want to see,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's no yeah.
So I don't know. I think this may be one of those kind of things. On the other hand, there's going to be a lot more zombie movies, and
zombies are coming back. I mean, there's just no way they're not coming back.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's going to be like ones that are sort of. I think the ones that will do well are going to be the less specific
genre stuff.
Genres. Yeah, I mean, even the film we were working on. I mean, it's a '70s Watergate conspiracy thriller. It's not about it's not about coronavirus. It's much, it's about Watergate, but but the sort of the tone of it, is not inconsistent with the tone of what's going on now. So,
well, certainly I'm assuming there's some sort of relevance to the current administration. Not to spoil.
That there is. Yeah. But on the other hand, when we were first, I mean, the germs of this idea came in 2017, the day after the election, when I was talking to Jules Pfeiffer out in Shelter Island and talking about Trump versus Nixon and Watergate. And then while I was there, I stayed at this place, the Silver Sands, and my friend Terry was saying, hey, we built, his grandparents built this place in the 50s and 60s, and it really looks like 1974 out there. And he said, oh, we've shot a lot of music videos and fashion shoots. He gets about 90 fashion shoots a year there, but no one's ever shot a feature. So he said, can you think of something that took place in 1974 and make a feature about it? And I was like, aha, Watergate,
Yeah.
And that was how we came up with the whole concept for the movie.
Amazing.
So, but even then, I mean, it was kind of, it still took us 2 years to write it. I wrote it with this guy, Daniel Moya, my writing producing partner.
Can I just say that it's pretty cool that you get to kick around ideas with Jules Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, well, he,
and I have this name drop.
There you go. Thank you.
Sound effect.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, he wrote the last film I did, Bernard and Huey, and he's he's a Pulitzer, Oscar, Obie winning, Tony nominated,
great
legend. Yeah, no, that's better than an EGOT. That's a Putin, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so no, and it's very cool. He's 91, but still, well, when I last checked on him, he was doing great, and he's still writing. Still writing graphic novels, still doing cartoons. So, but he, it's nice to be able to talk to people of that generation who can contextualize, Trump's election or even the coronavirus thing, in a way that they lived through Nixon, they lived through the House Un-Americans Activities Committee, they lived through the blacklist, they've seen that sort of scope of history. And I think I think it's nice to be able to comment on current events by doing a period movie, because what it does is it also kind of insulates you from, you're not doing something about what's going to change in 10 months,
because you don't have to do 1,000 text shots either, or phone bullshit.
Exactly.
I hate phone shit in movies so much.
but just the idea that, like when we were doing our crowdfunding, that was right when impeachment was going on. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're so super relevant. How did you know that was going to happen?" Well, it's like we knew something was going to happen, like, But on the other hand, by the time the film gets made and done and out there and festivals and distribution, people could be seeing this film next year, 2 years, 10 years from now. So
Watergate
it's got to
will
still
always
be exactly. So that was kind of how I looked at it. It was like, how do you make a film about now? And you make it about Watergate, and then it'll always be relevant not just to people in the States, but also people around the world, because everyone's heard of Watergate.
Yeah, and that this is a memory that I made up, but I feel like we've talked about probably most of my memories are made up. Telling a story that is timeless.
Yeah.
The shelf life of a story. How do you do that? Well,
I will tell you the advice I got from my friend Whit Stillman, who I'd like to call a friend. He's director of Metropolitan and Barcelona and all kinds of wonderful movies. And if you look at Metropolitan, his first film, he made a very specific point of having all his characters, who were like sort of young 20-somethings, dressed in like fancy suits and ties and evening gowns and dresses, and he said that was very specifically to make it timeless, because those fashions, that movie could have been shot in the 20s, could have been shot in the 2020s, and the characters would look exactly the same. And sure enough, that movie has held up remarkably well. Like you see it now and you're like, oh wow, this is not like a mumblecore movie set in where everyone's using an iPhone, so exactly when it is, or it doesn't have drone shots, so exactly when it was.
Everyone's had that experience of putting on a movie they love and realizing that it didn't age well. For whatever reason.
Yeah, no, and I was lucky. I saw my first film, Omaha the Movie, recently, and I kind of realized, I was pleasantly surprised by its agelessness too. And again, it was thinking about like, okay, the wardrobe, things like that, like they've aged appropriately, and it's not like, and there's not a lot of like, specific references to, and Mrs. President, and Bill Clinton, ha ha ha,
it's not Family Guy.
You don't, and I think that's the key to making a timeless movie, is to not make it super specific to the time you're in, because you never know. These movies have such a long tail, for better, worse, or otherwise. And it takes so long to finish a movie. Between the time you write the script and make the movie can be 2 or 3 years, and then another year of post-production, and then a year of going to festivals, and a year of getting distribution, another year until your distributor goes bankrupt, and then the second distributor comes up. It could be 25 years before someone's watching that thing. So,
or you just slap it on Amazon.
You could do that. Or make something super timely and or put it on YouTube and do it right away.
Well, that's the thing, is that's I'm trying to
the other way to go.
Difference between it's blurry and blurrier now. The difference between filmmakers and content creators, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the big distinctions there. Is that content is created for that week, and films are hopefully, if done correctly, more
have a longer shelf span,
a stab at eternity.
Yeah. I think so. I think that's a good way of thinking of it. Yeah, that's smart.
Thanks. Hey, it's been a while since someone called me smart. I appreciate that.
Well,
okay, let's take a quick little break. Do you have a little more time for us or no?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick.
Are we taking
break.
Questions from the audience?
Yeah, we'll be right back with Dan Mirvish and some fictional questions from the audience.
All right, sounds good. Do we have theme music for the intermission?
Yeah, you want it?
Sure.
Let's go.
I'm not hearing any theme music.
I'm not good at this. Wait, where is it? Come on now. Let's see. Headphones going in here. I don't know what the fuck. Here, I can just do it this way. I think that's good. Okay, I'm gonna pour some more iced tea. What are you doing? Oh, you're cracking your nuts.
No, I'm trying to do magic tricks. Yeah, How's your mom?
My mom is great. I mean, she's over 60, and and that puts her in a scary place. So I think the worst thing I could do is go be with her. First of all, I'd have to stay in a room for 14 days. It's so weird that the thing you can do to help your mom is to not be around her.
Yeah.
Like, that is very strange to me.
Right.
But my brother is good. He works with physically handicapped people, and so he's like sort of is in a sense on the front lines in that way, where he still has to help these people, and but he's quarantining otherwise. But he's the healthy workout
in
freak.
Texas.
No, that's in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
Utah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just messed up stuff. It's so sad. And it's funny because we're talking about how coronavirus affects independent film, because this is an independent film podcast or whatever, but obviously it's like there's so many more ramifications, and things like film become less, they become more trivial, but they're also just as important, it seems, in terms of getting people through this psychologically.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the funny thing is, now these streaming services, that's the only thing people can do, sit around and watch movies and TV. So ironically, like all the films that were at South by that then got canceled, or at Tribeca that it got canceled, strangely enough, their odds of getting sold right now may actually have improved.
I want to ask you about that.
Way.
Odds of getting sold. I feel like personally that my film would have never gotten bought now, not from the perspective of the market, right? Of like, Netflix isn't buying up independent movies anymore.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So
one of the reasons I want this podcast is to try to figure out what the fuck is going on with independent film. Where is it going? Like, what is going to happen here? Because with all this, we've had this boom of capability, right? That happened in indie film, where everyone could suddenly make a movie. And then suddenly everyone could distribute the movie, right?
Good. Yeah.
But now,
but should you?
Yeah.
But yeah, just because you make it doesn't mean people are going to see it. So,
but I just mean, what about audiences? Like, we all look at Netflix now, we all look at Hulu. I mean, and if they're not picking up indie films, like, are we seeing a drop in those kinds of sales out of the festival and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and it changes every year, and it's very hard to predict. So one year, Netflix and Amazon were in Park City and buying rights to all kinds of indie films, and then 6 months later, oh, we're going to change our business model, and now we're just going to make all original content.
Yeah.
And so, sorry guys, you get nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And and then Amazon went from like, oh yeah, you can play your movie, anyone can put your movie on Amazon, and you can make like, a few $100 a month on it, to, oh no, now we're going to change our model, so you get 4 cents every time someone watches your movie.
Yeah, and such is the music industry, and such as so many different things happening all at once, because it's all
So here's the way I've contextualized it in my own head, is that number one, you can't predict what the specifics of the business model are going to be. Like, by the time from the point of writing a script to making the movie to editing the movie to going to festivals, the business model could have changed 3 different times,
and all businesses. Yeah.
Well, I mean, most, like, the car business doesn't change that much.
From year to year. We're gonna start selling cars in new ways.
Yeah, or like the printer business doesn't change too much. Yeah, no, the film.
But they might go from
quickly.
Stocking SUVs to doing
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, if you've invested in SUV, trim work or whatever.
Metaphor black hole over here.
Yeah. So. But anyway, so with film, so I look at it like this, like, okay, so it's a given that you can't predict what the distribution model's going to be exactly. The only thing you can predict is that the odds are it will not be good in your favor. Even when
you'll probably have a shitty time.
Yeah. And, and only 1 or 2% of the indie films made each year are going to get meaningfully distributed.
Interesting. That's it. Yeah.
And I don't think that has changed, in the 25 years I've been doing this. Yeah, the kinds of distribution have changed, and the names of the companies have changed, and the VOD and the streaming and the theatrical, but the basic underlying percentages, that sort of 1 to 2% of indie films made each year get some kind of meaningful, noticeable distribution. I don't think that's changed at all, those numbers. So knowing that,
Yeah.
It forces you to, and forces me to kind of think in a different way. Number one, it compels me to tell all my backers and investors this as well, that we're not going to make money. Like, we should not, this is not the reason to be making an independent movie, because the odds of that are, stacked against us, 99% to 1 against us. So, all right, so take that off the table. So then the question is, well, how do you raise money from people knowing that they're not going to make money? And that's why I like crowdfunding, because those people are not motivated by making money back. They're motivated by the perks, or motivated by,
and in the ye olden days, they used to give money to an artist performing, just hand them money.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And I never let myself forget that.
Yeah, no, I know. And you shouldn't. No, and that's actually what's great about crowdfunding, is it's kind of changed the paradigm and even the language. Like, you've gone from needing to get investors to, no, now we need backers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
supporters.
That is it. And that literally goes back to, the Middle Ages model. So, but also it's much more akin to the model of, of art museums and public radio and community
nonprofit
theater. And yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I've done on almost all of my films is I've teamed up with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. So in the last 2 films, I've worked with the Film Collaborative, which is an LA-based 501c3. They come on as a fiscal sponsor. So if somebody wants to give you money, they actually write the check to the fiscal sponsor. They get a tax deduction right away. The fiscal sponsor keeps 5% of the money, and you get the other 95%. But the nice thing is, the expectations are, they're just backing your film. They get a tote bag, they get a mug, whatever your perk is that you're giving them, but they're not expecting to make money back. And what I found is, even when most of your money does ultimately come from sort of for-profit investors, as long as you've given them this option that, oh, hey, you could have gone the nonprofit model. That was your choice, get a tax deduction now, or get, screwed later.
Yeah.
People still appreciate that. And they like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm rolling the dice with this thing, but, Mirvish gave me that option, So that's how I've tried to kind of contextualize it, is like, okay, this is much more akin on the fundraising side to these nonprofit models. But then the getting back to the distribution side of it, we should, as filmmakers, we should also look at it more in terms of sort of performance-based art forms. So, which is to say, I really enjoy going to film festivals, right? So, and this is kind of pre-corona. I do. Yes, I've gone to hundreds, I don't know, maybe hundreds of film festivals. My last film went to 30 festivals on 5 continents.
Yeah, and now you get to go to 0 for the next
5 I know. So, yeah, no, I mean, there's a little bit of a pause here, I think, for 6 months or longer, who knows? But but the reason I like film festivals in general is because usually they are very good at getting an audience to come to your film and packing that.
And an appreciative one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's key too. They're there to see the film. They're not just there to kill time or whatever.
I've seen a lot of people try to screen premiere their movies at bars.
That works too, whatever it takes.
Well, it doesn't really work.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
So, but the point is, compared to like, oh, everyone thinks, the golden ticket used to be like, oh, I'm getting a theatrical release of your film. And that is still important. But even if you get a theatrical release, it doesn't mean people are going to actually come to the screenings, even if you're playing at, Lemley's in LA or, someplace fancy in New York, it doesn't mean people are going to come, and even if you get, and even if you've got a big Hollywood film and you get a 3,000 screen release, that sounds great, but you can only go to like 1 or 2 Q&As a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you get a film on Netflix, great, your film's on Netflix, but there's 0 engagement with the audience whatsoever. Like, you wouldn't even, like,
no, it's on there.
film. Yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
you wouldn't even know it's on there.
You wouldn't
That's
even know.
the thing that people think they see all the movies that are on Netflix, and that is not true at all.
Nope, not at all, not at all. And even if you have a hit on Netflix, how do you know it's a hit? Like, there's no comments.
They're
There's
not going to tell you.
They're not going to tell you.
They'll tell you if
So
you're top 10 in the world. Now,
maybe, you know.
they just started doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is, what I like about film festivals is, and getting back to the analogy of it being like a performance-based art form, is that, you know, you meet the audience, you see them, you know, you do an introduction, you screen the film, you see the audience. You know, if it's a comedy, you hear them laugh. If it's a horror film, you hear them shriek, or it's a drama, you hear them cry, or whatever it is. And then you're doing Q&A afterwards, and you're talking to them, and you're having panels with them, and you're meeting other filmmakers, but you know, but specifically, just like that experience of a performance is much more akin to putting on a play, or to, you know, or a music performance, you know, a concert.
It's an event.
And it's an event. And so I think if we start as filmmakers, if we start to think about, you know, okay, why are we making movies? Who are we making them for? Like, if you think about them, like, okay, I'm making them for an audience, and a real audience, like a real group of people in a room together.
They're going to be there one day.
That you want. Yeah, one day, you know, as opposed to, and I think that's a distinction too between a content creator, you know, where you're putting stuff on the internet, where, you know, there's not a lot of audience engagement. There can
It's
be,
not an experience as much, because you're experiencing it through a screen.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're making a film that you want people to experience together in a room, that's the one unique thing that indie film has, even more than, you know.
And that's my favorite part about movies
in
in general. Like, you know, that's my favorite thing about movies in general, is that it puts people in a room together experiencing a story. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And experiencing a virus together. You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're surviving a virus and spreading it
together. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, hopefully, and I, you know, obviously with this whole virus thing, there's, you know, festivals have shut down, theaters have shut down, but that's not going to be forever. I mean, no. I think that's going to, you know, the movie business thrived after the Spanish flu, you know. So.
And think of how many extra drafts the screenwriters are going to do, because they have the luxury and the time, right? The
doesn't mean they will, you know.
Yeah, no.
They're out there watching Netflix as much as
I had a lot of trouble being productive the first few days. That's why I was like, I gotta, I gotta get going. But wow, Dan, there is so much more that I want to talk to you about, but I'll have to have you on at another time, right? That's how it works.
I don't know. How does it work? I can keep talking forever. But the point is, what is the point? The point is, I'm taking advantage of this time to edit the footage we have for the movie, which is good. I was literally doing that when you called, and so violently interrupted me. And you know, and I'm also working on the second edition. By the way, right before I left to go shoot the movie, I got approved to do the second edition of The Cheerful Subversive Guide to Independent Filmmaking. So I'm actually working on that. I will now have a chapter, How to Make a Movie in the Middle of the Global Pandemic. I did not have that chapter before. So
that might be a book in itself, but yes, I love it. Make sure on the cover there's something that says with new chapter,
How to Make a Movie in the Middle of a Global Pandemic. Which strangely enough is not that different from making a movie when there's not a global pandemic. It didn't really change that much.
The answer, you don't.
You don't. You try
you just
not
don't
to.
Do that.
You just try.
You make a movie.
You maybe write a script during a global pandemic. You edit a movie during a global pandemic, but shooting it, I think
we're going to see a puppet resurgence. Puppet film.
I know there should be. Yeah, no, believe me. If we can't get back for our last 4 days, we are going to have puppet scenes in
do the rest with puppets.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just roll a little extra.
How are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. Really? Oh, that's great. Oh, Watergate. Oh, no, not Watergate. Yes, Watergate.
Sounds historically relevant.
Oh, really? Oh,
Oh, the president.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the whole thing with C-47. So,
yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you for having me on. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be on any podcast hosted by anyone that has lived in my garage. So,
thank you for having me in your.
And by the way, that is a fairly long list of people with podcasts who have lived in my garage.
You should have said overstayed your welcome.
Well,
Uh,
you said it. I did not. That would have been rude for me to have said that.
I was actually in that time. I was having a allergic reaction to an antidepressant, so I was hypomanic. Isn't that cool? Yeah,
I did not
but
realize
I'm all
there was a
good
medical
now.
reason for your existence.
There,
But,
there was a medical reason for me showing up at your house with my girlfriend, with no announcement, shaving my head, and running all over the country. But you live and you
Awesome.
learn.
Yeah. Well, there
So
you
I
go.
appreciate your hospitality.
At least I could. So.
But I'm all good now. I've realized all my issues, and now that gives me power to
All right, now
take
you
meds.
just well, that's cool. Well, now you just have the coronavirus to deal with. So what could possibly go wrong?
But I do want to dive into the psychology of filmmakers, and I think you did give us a little insight into that, but also a lot of practical advice about how to make movies.
Well, there you go. If you want more practical advice,
check out
and
the Cheerful Submersive Guide to Independent Filmmaking.
Not submersive, subversive.
Subversive.
Yeah, no. There is. No. This is not about how to make a movie in a submarine.
I thought that was the VR version.
There is actually a reference going to be in the second edition to. We had a camera assistant on my last film, and we offered her first experience on a terrestrial film because she only had done underwater photography before.
Wow. She's like, man, the air's great up here.
I know. She's
we can keep shooting?
I can breathe without like filling my tank. So yeah, I should. So you gave me an idea. Maybe that chapter should be the Cheerful Submersives Guide to.
That would be really good.
Anyway.
But I was gonna say, I so appreciate it, and I'm honored that you're on here. You mentioned that 1% to 2% of films get a real audience. Somehow you manage to do that like every time you make a movie, which is incredible.
No, I'm on that like 2.5%.
You don't call your audience legit. You don't think you have a.
Well, it's legit.
I think you reach an audience. I see you when I'm scrolling through Apple TV featured on the main page and shit. I think I think you reach an audience. I think that we we don't get any data from anyone, and that's why we'll never know if anyone's watching our movies.
The problem, yeah. So it's cool when people do and they like them, but yeah, and it can literally take 20 years, So.
So, there's a lot of positive messages being sent and a lot of skeptical stuff, but that's, I think, going to be the tone of this podcast. Dan, thanks for helping me pioneer the very first episode.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
Skepticism.
All right.
I will
Good
talk
luck
to you
with
soon.
the podcast.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to it. All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Talk to you
Bye.
soon. Thanks so much. Bye.
Stay safe. Bye. How do I stop this crazy thing?
I don't fucking know.
I don't know.
Hey everybody, it's Andrew Edison, and you're listening to Movie Blab.
Reading it loud and clear. The clock has started.
That's right, guys. This is Movie Blab. Thanks for tuning in. Today we have a special interview with Dean Gonzalez, editor extraordinaire. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Hey guys, thanks for joining me again on this hopefully beautiful Monday. I'm Andrew Edison, and you're listening to Movie Blab episode 2. I'm so excited to welcome my guest, Dean Gonzalez, editor extraordinaire. How you doing, Dean?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Absolutely. Let me just check my levels. I think I'm good. I think I'm even better now. So Dean, we've been talking about fixing it in post, and I know that you have a lot of experience there. In fact, you live in post. Is that correct?
I do. I've been doing editing for, God, sounds horrible to say, but I would say probably like 19 to 20 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time on the timeline.
Yeah.
So it seems to me from looking at the work that I know that you've done, that you do a lot of indie features and you do a lot of trailers, a lot of horror stuff, a lot of music docs. How would you? I mean, I think every editor, and something I want to talk about is how every editor kind of has to find their niche, kind of their thing that they edit really well. Whether it's comedy or, I mean, everyone can branch out, obviously, but there seems to be like, I just found that people have certain tendencies, or things that they take on.
Yeah, I started out doing commercial work.
Oh wow!
Working at like a commercial.
Like I started out making money.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny because I started as an assistant at a place, literally, like, I just worked like god awful hours, like 9 a.m. till.
And what kind of work was that as an assistant editor?
We were doing a lot of commercial work, like Toyota commercials.
But like for you, are they like, yeah, cut this up into pieces, or are they like edit this whole thing? Or are they like, transcode the footage, or are they like, sit here and bring me coffee?
You didn't even touch. Yeah, you go out and get lunch. Yeah. You had to get well, a lot of what I did would be prepping for the editors.
Yes.
So I would
organizing,
digitize all the footage, organize everything. I would actually go through and actually figure out script-wise what they might need for sound design.
Oh, cool. And list that out.
I also add, because I love sound designing. So
I love it too.
Give them a bin of different sounds. And then depending on...
So that doesn't sound totally awful.
No. I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, I got thrown into the fire. I was an assistant for 5 editors. So
wow.
It was
at once?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I did that for a long time. Kind of got bored of just doing. I became an editor. They moved me up, and I was doing a lot of toy commercials. I did a lot of like Power Rangers. And
there's fun editing in those, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
But
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to fucking edit toy commercials every day, I would start to lose it for sure.
Yeah. And then I really wanted to do music videos because I had a lot of friends that were musicians. And then one of my mentors, this guy, Richard Cooperman, an amazing editor, he was kind of more of who I wanted to be like. Mm-hmm. He was doing videos for Aerosmith and like doing Pepsi commercials and like all these rad things. So I started doing music videos, and that creatively was way more interesting.
Oh yeah.
Because you only get it like, they'll give you like 2-3 page treatment and they only shot 2 pages. And they're like, well, I didn't have time to shoot one of the pages, so figure it out.
Yeah. Katie McDowell, it's actually her 30th birthday. She's a good friend of mine, and she's on the bonus features show every week. And she is making music videos in Austin and having a crazy time working with these artists who have, who give just specifically like, just very, people don't understand the process, I guess, if you're, from the perspective of a musician, or so it can become very frustrating to work with like crazy creatives, but it can be worth it. It just sort of depends on if you kind of hit that chemistry. But it seems like music videos have so many things that, like, I wonder what the notes are like on something like that.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had notes from like choreographers, like, oh, my best friend gave me some notes as well, and my hairstylist gave me a note, and
my
hairstylist sometimes to be the problem.
Cut this whole thing.
Yeah. Her hair doesn't look good in that shot.
Oh, it's a hair note, of course.
Yeah. But
that's amazing.
It depends on the artist. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people that'll roll in with their crew of like 8 to 10 people, and they're all on Blackberries in the back of your room, and you're like, okay, can we like just work on your video? And they want to order $150 worth of sushi, and
it's like a party.
Yeah.
Well, there is a certain amount of hosting. I mean, people think that editing is so solitary, and it is obviously most of the time, but then there's also, you're like bringing in the people that you're collaborating with. There's a lot of collaboration that I think people don't know about in terms of getting feedback from the hairdresser, having all these like to try to address all these notes as this one I think it's the hardest job in filmmaking, and actually like the most magic, because you're doing them like
Hairdressing? No, just kidding.
yeah, hairdressing. I would have a harder time doing that than any other role
Right?
on the
Right?
group.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
No,
looks
then
good.
I actually really enjoy working one-on-one with the artists.
Awesome.
Whether it's the director or, you know, in this, you know, for music videos, it's cool to meet artists, some of them, you know, and you get,
Yeah.
some of them are crazy stories and some are amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like dating. You don't know who you're gonna, but you have to date them, right? Like,
Oh,
you don't know who you're gonna end up with.
I've had you know, artists freak out in the room on directors.
Yeah. What are these make and breaks for you in terms? Oh, on directors, not on you. Yeah, because you're just chilling. You're just like clicking, making things.
Usually they're really happy.
Yeah.
Being there.
Yeah.
I mean, like one of my favorite experiences was Robert Plant. I did a music video for Robert Plant and Alison Krauss.
Amazing.
And Robert came in and he literally talked about Led Zeppelin for like 4 hours while I was editing the video. It was amazing. It was truly.
How do you focus when Robert Kraft is like hanging out with you, and like, how does that even happen?
You know, you that's part of the game. You have to. 50% of editing is entertaining the room.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to kind of be able to sit back, do your job, but also sometimes.
Dude, I don't know, man. No amount of ADD medication could get me to be able to do a good job editing on that shit.
Yeah,
well, he's right there. No, but hopefully that's when you pull out like cuts they haven't seen or whatever already, right?
I mean, it's usually great. I mean, I had one rough experience with Kid Rock where
okay, well, let's talk some shit on Kid Rock. Hell yeah.
He was mad dope, but the director didn't really shoot what he wanted.
Oh,
so he would ask like, yo, see those like strippers in the corner? Can I get more shots of them? And I'm like, nah, I don't.
We're out of strippers, bud. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, and I'd be like, see those gangbanger dudes? I want more of them. I'm like, nah, I don't got any more.
He thinks you're the camera person. He thinks you're the. Yeah, I know. He just doesn't know what you
didn't
have.
Realize.
Yeah.
He didn't realize what was necessarily shot.
Well, and I imagine he's like, well, I'll give you, you know, a day to shoot this, right? To the director maybe, and so then, or was it the director's fault that, you know, who knows? But
they shot a lot.
I think this.
You
shot a lot.
Stuff.
Okay, cool.
They shot I think 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
But they were doing helicopters, like they had car chases.
What's the video called?
So Hot.
So Hot.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the director was an indie music video kind of guy. Like I think he edited a lot of videos for like bands like, you know, Bowling for Soup or, you know, like Alien Ant Farm, kind of stuff like that.
Awesome.
So it was a different kind of approach, I think, than what Kid was used to maybe. Yeah. And he kind of snapped at him. And I just was like, okay, that's when you have to kind of realize, like, I know he likes to smoke cigars and we had a smoking patio. So I was like, you know what? Let's go outside, take a smoke break, chill out. And,
I'll tell you what shots we have.
And we just talked and he was chill. And I was like, look, I'll make it happen. Like,
there's so much therapy involved that people don't realize.
Yeah.
I've cut a few actors reels for my friends who, you know, who had gotten new footage or didn't have the capability to put their reels together, and doing that is that really reminded me how I mean, because you're giving yourself therapy when you're just editing by yourself in some ways, right? If you're editing your own film, which I think a lot of the listeners are probably doing, and I think is a, you know, I was talking about how, well, I'm going off now, but I was talking about how that might be a mistake for some people to not hire or have an editor. And if you are going to edit your own film, you should at least send it to someone else to blind edit another version for you, or to look at, to get that other perspective. Because, you know, some people watching this are making super low budget movies. They can't necessarily afford to hire every crew member that they need, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think filmmakers learn a lot from editing their own stuff.
Yeah, I do that a lot with friends like yourself. And, you know, it's like, send me something, I'll give you notes. And,
yes, you're very helpful with that.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? I'm all about making the art. And whether it's, you know, there's jobs that pay my bills, and then there's jobs that like
feed your soul.
Anything. I mean, I've got one of my favorite movies I've ever edited I cut and didn't get paid anything.
Wow.
I paid. It was
You paid
Well, yeah, because
$1,000. I'll let you edit my next movie, Dean.
There was a movie called The Scopia Effect, and so this is a good one because we're on Facebook. That I never met the director. He had posted something on Facebook, like a little teaser of this movie, and it looked amazing.
Oh, dope.
So I reached out to him, and I was like, "This looks so cool. If you ever need an editor, I'd love to work with you." He responded, and basically we got on the phone, chatted. He lives in London, and he was like, "Let's do it." And he sent me all the footage, and at that point I had just moved from Los Angeles to Chicago.
Yeah.
So this is his first feature, and sent me his baby. We worked on it, and then posted him reels, and then he was super happy. He flew into town, stayed with me and my wife, and my wife was like, "Who is this dude?" I was like, "Don't worry about it. He's totally cool." And his name's Christopher Butler. And then
that was
we weren't quite done after the 10 days. So then he had to go back home. So I bought a ticket to London, and I flew to London, stayed with him for another 10 days, and we finished the movie, and I flew back.
I think when we met, I think immediately you were crashing it with me.
Yeah.
Wasn't that true? Yeah. That happens to you a lot, I feel like.
I know. We met in Slamdance, and we had a movie premiere there, and we had a dope house with these producers and stuff, and the producers were like, "We're going home early." Yeah. And we're like, "Wait, what?" And so suddenly I didn't have a house, and I had 2 days left, and I had become friends with you, and you're like, "Dude, come hang out with me."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, either that or I'm like sleeping in the Slamdance office.
Yeah, they were just kicked in for 48 hours. That's the only time we've ever hung out in person.
Yeah.
But then we've been in touch since. Yeah, it's awesome. It's it's one of my favorite meeting stories. But I want to get back to something, speaking of meeting people, that you reminded me of when you were telling this story of how you got this gig. What's it called? Scopia Effect? Scopia Effect.
Scopia, yeah.
I saw the trailer. It looks so sick. I'm assuming you edited the trailer as well.
I did.
Yeah, very good.
Low budget,
like you do have a very specific style that I dig. I mean, when I saw Between Us, Dan Mirvish's film, who was our first guest on the podcast. If you guys want to check that out, because you're loving this so much.
Dan Mirvish is great.
Yeah, and you gave that such a modern, slick editing style. That blew my mind, especially how you kept the dialogue. I mean, there's so much dialogue in that movie, but you kept it so interesting with the cuts and the sound. So I think to definitely check out that movie as well. But
we know what's interesting about that movie?
Yeah,
is that was my very first feature that I edited.
Damn, you edited like a music video.
Well, because I've been wanting to do movies forever. And everybody kept asking me, "Well, do you have a movie that you've edited?" And I was like, "No." And so then Dan had been a friend of mine for a really long time.
Yeah.
And reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I would love to work with you on this movie. I don't have a huge budget."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I don't care. I want to
it.
do it."
Yeah.
And it was so exciting to me because it was based on a play.
Yes.
And I mean, there was one scene that had 20 pages of dialogue.
I know. And they kill it too. It's a great movie.
And that's really good for at least for me, editorially. I'd never edited anything like that much dialogue, dramatic dialogue in one scene with 4 actors.
It's such a challenge for an editor.
Yeah. And so I was thrilled, and I was really, really happy. I got to work with Dan on that. We both edited scenes, but it was.
Were you in the same place, or was it going back and forth?
We were editing in his house.
Oh, nice. In the garage or in the house?
Made me a lot of fig pizza.
In the garage or in the house?
Oh yeah, it was great. It was great, man.
Was it in the garage though, or were you in the house?
Oh, garage or in the house? Sorry.
Yeah.
We were actually in the kitchen.
Oh, nice. I crashed in the garage for a long time.
I feel like his garage is like a Roger Corman kind of thing.
Yes.
So Dan supports so many independent filmmakers.
Yes, it's wild.
Always so giving. And it's like, dude, come crash in my guest house.
And the entire Slamdance network on top of that. I mean, Dan leads that, obviously, he really, in a one-on-one basis, has really supported so many people
Absolutely.
But in the festival itself, everyone at that festival is like a family.
Well, and he gave me my start. Like I'm saying,
Yeah.
like he truly gave me the start.
But you took
my
advantage of that
editing.
start. Like you kicked ass on that. Like, you know, it's like
Thank you.
getting the opportunity is one thing, but like doing it, you know, seizing it in that way, I think is pretty incredible. But yeah, I mean, that's like pure passion and excitement coming out of that. Like there's nothing like the first movie you edit, like feature you edit, or the first short you make, or the, you know, it's like there's something about that is especially if it's a breakthrough moment for you, or you're in your career or in your artistic kind of mindset. I think that's editing is such a trippy experience, I think.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's like therapy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
especially if it's you editing your own first film or short or whatever, you kind of sit there and go, "Oh God, why did I shoot it like this?" Or you know, whatever. You just dwell over all the bad shots.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you have to look at all the good stuff too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite video game, that's for sure. I think some filmmakers out there are afraid to edit. They're or afraid to learn to edit, which blows my mind. Like, I think that even if you're not a full-time editor, if you don't understand or don't study the craft of editing, you won't know how to shoot for your editor.
It definitely, it's interesting because you can definitely tell when you have certain directors that are either like cinematographer directors or editorial directors,
Yeah,
or both,
exactly.
you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
they just are well crafted.
Everyone has
like
a different balance, it seems like.
Yeah, where it's like Scorsese, you know, like he really knows, and he even Thelma Schoonmaker, you know, she talks about how he helped her learn how to edit. Where so he knows how to shoot for the edits. And then there's definitely some directors that you're like, no, you don't have a clue. Which is, you know, hey, people come and go. So, but I've been very fortunate to work with some really, really great people. And like Dan shot some amazing stuff, and be able my first film to be able to work with that cast.
Yes, and such a masterful indie filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. All right, well, I want to take a quick break and make sure everything is doing well technically, and we'll be right back with Dean Gonzalez. Stay tuned. All right, guys, thanks for joining us yet again for the second part of this interview. Dean, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is possible for an editor and what is expecting too much, maybe. We were talking on the bonus features about performance. How much, we actually got a listener question about it. How much can an editor make a performance, whether it's great or terrible? How much can an editor elevate an actor's performance, and how? How much? What control do you have there?
You know, I guess really where that comes down to is using different takes. So it really comes down to, like, you know, if it's an emotional scene, you know, he or she might hit a certain tone with, let's say, you know, the second take.
Yes.
And then on the fourth take, the ending of that might be in that same realm again.
Yeah.
And so then you take different parts and it looks like, you know, one perfect scene that they did, you know, perfectly, but, you know, there was moments where maybe they flubbed a line, or you know,
I think a lot of actors can have, you know, it depends on, certain actors have great, like, kill it on the first take and then get worse and worse. Some like are amazing by the 10th take, you know, and it's all, obviously it's after the fact when you're looking at it.
Well, you know, the one the one thing that I absolutely love, I just did a movie, an indie film, called Echo Boomers.
Awesome.
It'll be coming out, and Michael Shannon is one of the stars.
Love Michael Shannon. Oh my God, Lars von Trier's movie. I
know it's
Oh God, it's so. Oh, The House That Jack Built.
Yes.
That's him, right?
Yeah.
Is it not?
I don't think so.
All right, I'm gonna cut that out.
Yeah.
Go like this, so that I know. Okay.
But he's an incredible
Michael Shannon,
actor.
incredible actor. Yes.
Yeah, he the thing that I really loved about being able to go through, like I feel so privileged to be able to go through All It Takes with him.
Wow.
He gives different performances. And to me, that's what really showed a really seasoned actor.
Yes.
Where he'll do 5-6 takes and 3 of them will be pretty similar, but then, you know, he'll give different performance, you know, adjustments to give you options.
Yes.
And that was incredible.
Yeah. So it's like the seasoned actor is almost communicating to you through their options. You feel like,
and he knows he's going to crush it.
Yeah.
Right. He's confident in his acting abilities. So what he does is and I think it's also for them, you know, it's like,
of course.
I don't want to give the same read 8 times.
Yeah.
So every time he gives a little bit something different.
Totally.
And to me, if you're asking like what other actors can do, that is a huge thing to be able to give an editor or a director.
Yeah.
Because it just sets other options for editing. You know, if he went up and became really aggressive suddenly, if that's part of the character.
Yeah.
Or then all of a sudden he stays mundane, but it still kind of like has that intensity to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I'm assuming you're picking that shot too that tells it best tonally as well. If there's multiple shots of it, of the action or whatever's happening.
Well, and Michael did that where he would go. So my dog is.
We love dogs here.
Yeah, he Michael would go and he plays a bad guy, and he would give these really intense reads, and then he would do it really like just mundane but super intense.
Sometimes,
and that would be usually the takes that we would use.
Yeah,
because it seems almost scarier with a guy who's a bad guy, who's not going to be like screaming in your face. He's just more like, really?
Well,
and ruin your world.
Yeah, and it's like that Lecter, Hannibal Lecter kind of thing of like, they know they have all the control already. They don't need to be trying to scare you.
Exactly.
They're scary, you know. And I think that's a great. This is something I'm actually working on with my short film. I'm going to send you the rough cut of very soon. But it's hard to focus in these times. So this podcast is really where I'm putting my energy this month.
It's a crazy time. I mean, I'm luckily, I've been working on a documentary film currently right now, and in the middle, so my dog,
she wants on
camera. Working on a documentary film that we're able to set up. Oh, my internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, I know. You were kind of going in slow-mo for a second. It was pretty trippy. It was cool.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing a documentary film with Dave Grohl. He's directing.
No way.
Yeah.
What did he see you on the street and thought you were his identical twin and then hired you?
No, I'm actually I'm represented with a company called Therapy Studios. Okay. And they connect me with him because they do all the projects with him. And
are they like a music video label or something, like a music video production company, or how would you describe?
They do everything. They did Sonic Highways.
Do they rep you? Do they like how does
they represent me?
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
And so I joined with them. They represent me now. Started last summer.
And how'd you nab that? The people always want to know how they're going to get an agent, and I think there are people who are aspiring to be editors right now who are just now understanding that as an editor you get an agent.
Well, it's funny because this isn't an agent. It's a post-production company.
Okay.
I've been friends with them for many years. They've been around a long time. They're incredible. And
you're salaried with them, or is it per gig?
No.
Okay.
Everybody's freelance.
Okay, cool.
And they're an incredible group. And most of my editor friends that I kind of came up with also work with them. They're just stellar editors, and it's just a great group of people. So I had reached out to them, and off and on throughout the years, and finally we made it work.
Smart. You're so good at checking in with people, or just reaching out to people that you're inspired to talk to, even if you don't know them.
Absolutely. You never know what'll happen. Yeah, it's like, you don't know if you can fly unless you jump, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I read something about Ashton Kutcher's like social media manager because he's like a big entrepreneur now and has all these brands and stuff.
Mm.
And he had said he had written a book about giving advice about, and he said reach out to the people that inspire you the most. Just blindly try to just reach out to them, message them, whatever, or someone that that you want to work with or that you dream of working with, and tell them that you're willing to help them for free. For a little bit of time,
100%.
and just offer it, and what nothing bad could happen. And I think people will be surprised, depending on, I mean, if you're trying to get in touch with Beyonce, obviously she's not going to get back to you. But like, if you can,
You never know.
Yeah, it's
Especially nowadays. They're at home.
I've met her.
There you go. There you go. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a special effects makeup artist.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so me and my friends would just make little horror movies and, like whatever. And
you were the effects guy?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and me and my friends would make all these little weird horror films, and we did the makeup effects. And I wrote a letter to Tom Savini, and this is before he actually opened his school.
What?
And he never responded to me, but I wrote him a letter. And I also wrote a letter to Francis Ford Coppola, because he had started that company, American Zoetrope.
Yeah.
And they were doing this like artist community thing in San Francisco. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And that's all I ever wanted to be a part of, was like a community of artists to make art films. And I wrote him a letter, never got back to me, but I tried.
So happy. Yeah. It's true. I sent Howard Stern Bindle stiffs. He never got back to me.
But you might, you never know. So it's like,
I dropped it off at Tim League's house. He never got back to me.
Yeah. I mean, you got to try, but then you send it to.
I told Seth Rogen to watch it on Netflix. He never got back to me.
But then,
you just do it. You just fucking do it because how much of your day are you sitting down? Obviously, you're editing most for gratuitous hours. I'm assuming. And to the brink of where your health would start being hurt. I'm hoping that you would stop. You're staying healthy.
You forget to eat. It's
hard
like
to eat and edit.
6 hours. You're like, I got a headache because I didn't eat a sandwich.
Oh my gosh, the passage of time, dude, is so wild when you're editing.
It's because you're loving it, and you're just in the moment of a scene. Probably, at least that's what it is for me. And I get so engrossed into the moment and trying to make it come alive for me, and music and sound design. And every time whenever I want to show something to the director, I want it to seem like it's the finished product. So I sound design it. I put in the music that I think works with it. It's like,
I do this too. Even for something rough.
Yeah.
I do that too. And people think it's weird. They're like, why are you doing sound design right now? And I'm like, I don't know if I can understand the experience of watching this film right now without some sound design.
Yeah, exactly. I got to feel everything that's in the scene.
Yeah, because like putting a sound effect under a shot or a music under a shot or whatever it is, like whatever you're envisioning, it literally changes everything, because people don't understand that audio is 50% of the experience.
Yeah.
I'm deaf in one ear, so for me it's 25, but
I just did a short film that takes place in like Civil War era.
Oh, sick.
And it's like, inside this cabin, and it's like I had to add a sound effect of the fireplace crackling. And it just adds so much.
Suddenly you feel the fire, and you see, you actually pay attention to the fire lighting, and it's crazy.
It gives you a different, if it wasn't there, it adds so much, just little tiny details sometimes.
Yeah.
Even music,
Totally. And that can be a slippery slope, because I've found that sometimes I'll put music under something and think it's fucking great, right? Like temp music or something, because that's the power of sound. Sometimes it almost, so you have to check it both ways, because sometimes I'll edit something with music, and then I'll take out the music and like it way better,
Well, or the hard part is that we like in the last film that I did, we were putting in different music tracks, and some of them are ones that we probably cannot afford.
Of course.
But we love them.
Your hopes up, yeah.
Well, but how we look at it is like, look, this is what we want. This is the vibe that we're going for.
Sure.
And we have a composer, and it's like, look, if we can't, we're going to ask for the rights, but if we can't get it, our composer is going to at least know the vibe that we're going for and the beats, and if I have to adjust a little bit, we adjust a little.
Mm-hmm.
But you can usually, any great composer can adjust to, the beats per minute, like, and be like, okay, this is what you're going for. I get it.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Absolutely. And then there's so much more. I mean, I know when I started making shorts when I was like much younger, there wasn't a ton of royalty-free music out there for free. There was royalty-free music you could buy from like Sound Dogs and stuff. But I was looking for stuff that I could, use.
And usually it's garbage. It used to be like very Casio keyboard. Like,
yes, exactly. Now there's some dank stuff out there. Kevin McLeod is a great one. He Incompetech.com. He just like has so much free stuff out there. I used a bunch of it on my feature. I always look up his stuff, and you can sort it by mood. And there's a bunch of YouTube has a giant sound effects library that I spent an hour downloading, and a up for free, and a giant music library as well of all common.
Yeah. I mean, if people like, there's a company that I used to use a lot, Marmoset.
Mm-hmm.
They're out in, I believe it's Portland. And most of the places now are using this, but like they would use real musicians, that really like, they care about what they do and they want to make the best songs. And like, this is how like an indie band can make a living.
Mm-hmm.
So they send, they make these like tracks that people can also use in commercials and films and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's really
and promote them.
Yeah.
Some of them you can specify. You can say as a composer posting that for this one anyone can use it, no matter, I don't care, or you can say I need to be credited. You can use it, but you have to credit me.
Right. Well, and what I've noticed a lot lately is on this horror film that I worked on, we got to work with this amazing musician, John Natchez. He's in the band War on Drugs.
Oh yeah, I've heard of War on Drugs.
Yeah, fantastic band.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to be able to get him, and he has been composing a lot on the side. And so he's done like Skeleton Twins and like he's done some really, really, really killer stuff. And I've noticed more and more that like, I would say professional musicians, are also film composers.
Yeah, who really kicked that off? The guy who
Danny Elfman, and he was in Oingo Boingo, and
the guy who did Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood, the score for There Will Be Blood. Johnny Greenwood, or is it?
No, I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah,
There Will Be.
I think it's fantastic though to have that option and to always be creating as a musician, filmmaker, whatever it may be. Some filmmakers, they do a feature and maybe then they do a commercial. To me, it's no different, really.
No, it's true. And editors really get to cross that line a lot. It's like even more than filmmakers seem to. Right.
Well, it's what's interesting, at least from my perspective, is that as a director, let's say you're a comedy director, I would say that's 90% of what you're going to edit.
Yeah.
Or I mean, direct. For me, luckily, I've done a lot of different styles of editing. I've done dramatic films. I've done horror films. I've done documentaries. Music. So I feel very fortunate because I get to do so many different styles that I wouldn't as a director.
And it seems like that's a smart move career-wise for you, because what you've done is you now have samples of all these different types of work. So you're broadening your potential client base, right? By
having my agent doesn't like it though.
Oh,
because they like to pigeonhole you.
Yeah, this guy is your editor for period dramas about girls struggling, and it's like
if you need the guy with the certain period of World War II editor, this is your guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's they get a little
movie?
like,
oh, we've got him.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we've got a bunch of different things that you do. They're like,
yeah.
I'm like, well, isn't that great? And they're like, yeah.
I ran into the same thing. I think when I got reps out of Bindle Stiffs, I was really pushed towards dirty teen comedies and just crude, just the same thing. And I just made that,
Yeah.
And so it was shocking to me because in found footage movies, and there was wiggle room there, obviously, but you do get put in a box once you succeed on something, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
immediately.
I was friends with Edgar Wright, And I mean, we're still friends, but he
Yo,
had
add him
just
to the
done,
chat. Add him to the Zoom.
yeah, right. He had just done Shaun of the Dead,
Yeah.
and he got all these offers to do just like terrible horror comedies.